Hi, this is Kirk Degiorgio for Sonic Academy, and I'm here to introduce a short video on Cherry Audio's new Rackmode range of effects. Now, a couple of months ago, Cherry Audio asked their Facebook users to suggest some ideas for future developments, and they specifically wanted something that hadn't been emulated before. Now, I suggested the Moog source synthesizer, but with some extra add-ons such as the rack mount series of effects that Moog introduced in the late 70s. Well, they didn't do the Moog source, but they did take me up on the rack mount effects, and they have emulated all of the Moog rack mount processors from the late 70s. So that's what we're going to have a look at. There's a ring modulator, there's a fantastically rare string filter, and a very rare bowed frequency shifter, a fully featured vocoder, a couple of EQs, a phaser, and much more. So this is Kirk Degiorgio for Sonic Academy, having a look at Cherry Audio's Rackmode Effects. Right, so once you've installed your Cherry Audio effects, they'll just appear here. You can see under Rack Mode, and the first one we're going to demonstrate is the Parametric EQ. This is something that I had in hardware, so I know it pretty well, and it was incredibly good for adding huge weight and sub to any kind of kick drum and bass sound. It got a bit too much actually on some bass sounds. So if you've got a kick that really needs beefing up or nicely rounding out in the bottom end, this is highly recommended. I've just knocked up this quick track, and let's get it going on the kick sound. So immediately go to the low end. You see here we've just got 3 sections, pretty straightforward. Let's get right down into the low frequency area, keep a nice wide curve, and then start to add the dB. You see you got a whopping 20 dB of gain or cut there. So this is really good for kick sounds that you feel need a bit of weight. You can hear as soon as I take it out. Back in. The original unit I remember was incredibly noisy, and don't seem to get that on here, which is good for production but not so good for authenticity. I had a friend who had one of these also. It was very noisy, so I think that was part of the design rather than my unit in particular. But one thing that was really good on the original unit was the drive. It's saturated nicely if you combined the drive with the gain to get the overload. There you go, and then just back off. You see it breaks up really nicely, got a nice saturation rather than distortion. Sounds really nice, so just be quite subtle and then take it out. Yeah, really nice for adding that subby weight to a kick drum sound, and you can even take out some of the lower mids. Lovely stuff. Okay, similarly we can go to our clap sound here, and we can drag in the graphic EQ. And you can see here, very straightforward again. You've got your drive and gain, so you can really get a nice crunchy sound. And then you've got your bands. Take out some of the lower mids, emphasize the mid-range. Really subtle top end. Here you can soften that. Okay. Next we have our frequency shifter, a much in demand effect. This is based on the bowed frequency shifter that Moog produced in the early 70s, and you'll hear it's really good on drums. It's quite a complex plugin, so I won't go into too much depth on it here,
but you can hear I've just put it on the shaker. You'll hear immediately how it's softened it. It's the original. Now what it does, here's your frequency amount that it shifts, so you can hear the frequency going down. But if you go to this AB mix here, you'll see it has both the downshifted and the B upshifted signal, so you can find a nice balance between the two. There's your upshifted, there's your downshifted. You can also feed back, you hear? Feed back some of that frequency shifting back into the circuit. Got a nice noise gate here for the input. Obviously you find your threshold. You can boost the input, and also you've got your modulation here. If we start adding some modulation, the shift amount starts to modulate depending on what shape you've got on your waveform here and the rate, so it's like a simple LFO. And yeah, you've got your scale here, so you can go right down into the lower frequencies or up into the very top. If we turn that modulation off, here we can get a nice kind of almost like a clap sound on our shaker here, and we can boost that. There we go, that's the frequency shifter. Okay, now to further enhance our shaker, I've added a nice delay. And what we're going to do next is check out the Cherry Audio Phaser, another one of the highly sought after Moog rack mount units from the late 70s. You can see here it's very fully featured. You can even have control over the number of phasing stages and the resonance stages. You've got a LFO for modulating the sweep of the phasing, all important of course, and you can go from fast to slow, and you've got your, again, gain and overload. So here we've got mixing with the original signal, or you can really go full on and hear the phased effect only. You can hear it sweeping around in the stereo field. You've got your stereo sweep on and off here. Let's put it on a nice sine wave. Let's increase the amount of resonance. Let's just boost this so you can really hear it well. You can hear the resonance doesn't get nasty, you've just got a nice kind of peaky sound. You can back that off for a smoother effect. You can get really full on with the phasing stages, or quite subtle. As I said, here you've got your LFO, so you can get some nice effects by really speeding up the sweep amount, swooping around the stereo field, whack the gain up. You can of course sync the sweeping effect to the BPM of your session. There we go, that's a really nice effect there. Right, to demonstrate the Rackmode ring modulator, which I'm going to put on here and just quickly disable it, I've just put in a quick key type sound. It works really nice on these harmonic types of sound. Now something very important is the input routing immediately on the ring mod, because yeah, it looks pretty complicated, but it really isn't. You've got an internal VCO here, and you can see here voltage controlled oscillator that you can have as a sine, tri, various shapes, and you can of course have it high pitched or low pitched. You've got your range switch here, and it mixes it in with the input signal. So if I turn it on, now what a ring modulator does, it adds the sum and the difference between the two frequencies, the internal and the external. Now what this means is, it just means that the internal voltage controlled oscillator will be mixed in with the sidechain input. You can arrange that in your DAW, and this is quite special. It ignores the internal VCO, and it will take the left and right, and it will base its calculations on your left and right signals. Really nice effect there. Or you can go back to the more traditional ring mod sound, and we can start to increase the rate of our internal oscillator. And you can hear it gets enharmonic really quickly. The ring mod is not really an effect if you want to stay in a certain scale or a certain key. It really starts to mangle up the frequencies, as you can hear. Unless you go really slow. Here you go. And you can of course modulate that sound. We've got an internal LFO here as well as our internal VCO. Okay, to demonstrate one of the most esoteric effects in our Rackmode series, I've done a little dub techno stab here. Very simple. If I take the delay and the reverb sound off, you can see it's just pretty much a straight waveform. And we're going to drag the string filter in between these effects. And the best way to demonstrate this is just to go through the presets, because what it does, it basically has 36 narrow bandpass filters, and they're designed to emulate the kind of bodies of real acoustic string instruments, hence the string filter name. So you can hear it adds a really nice resonant sound that can be swept. Here you have both amplitude modulation and frequency modulation, so you have both of those, and you can sync those to your host tempo. And here you can boost or cut the various sections of your frequency range. You can hear it gets nice and woody, like, you know, it's trying to emulate the woodiness of the body of a real string instrument, and it can be really nice and effective on electronic music. Definitely one of the most interesting and esoteric effects in the Rackmode series. And the final Rackmode effect is a fully featured 16-channel vocoder based on the Moog vocoder, and it's really incredible that you get this fully featured instrument as well as all the Rackmode effects. Now, if I was to just play the dry signal, I've routed it through the sidechain. So you see, you put the vocoder as an instrument in Ableton, and then you select your pre-recorded vocal, or you could do it live even. I've just done a pre-recorded audio file of me saying Sonic Academy. So that's coming through on our sidechain here. And if I put the mix to program, that should just... There you go. If I put the output level up, Sonic Academy. Just very simple. Sonic Academy. And now all I have to do is start playing some notes on my keyboard and adjusting the mix between the program and the vocoder effect. Go 100%.
Sonic Academy. Sonic Academy.
And you can
Sonic Academy.
flip through the presets, but you get the idea.
Sonic Academy.
A fully featured vocoder also included in this incredible package from Cherry Audio. Great value for money. It's the Rackmode series of effects.
Thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate the support from you guys. If you liked this video, then smash that like button, and if you want to be notified about new content, hit the subscribe and the bell notifications. Peace!